The peaceful hum of the galaxy was shattered when an alien race, the Phyrexians, appeared out of nowhere. No one had seen them coming. They were a race older than most, hiding deep in the reaches of space for centuries. Their technology was advanced far beyond what anyone had imagined, and their fleet of ships was massive, glimmering like stars in the distance as they approached. They made no secret of their arrival, sending a message to all nearby planets, including Earth. The message was simple, chilling, and sent without emotion. Submit, or face destruction. The leaders of Earth had long known that the universe was full of dangers. They had heard stories from explorers who had visited distant planets, stories about alien races with incredible powers and strange technologies. However, the Phyrexians were something else entirely. Their ships, unlike anything seen before, were sleek and silent, cutting through space like shadows. Their weapons, when demonstrated, were so powerful that entire fleets were reduced to dust in moments. It wasn't long before the galaxy's more powerful civilizations took notice. They were aware of the Phyrexian ships and their terrifying capabilities. The United Federation, a group of planets that had existed in peace for centuries, immediately called an emergency meeting to discuss the threat. Earth, still a young civilization, was not seen as a key player in the galactic community. Humans were considered primitive in comparison to the technologically advanced alien races who inhabited the stars. Earth was more of an afterthought to many, a small planet in the grand scheme of things. Humanity had yet to master faster-than-light travel, and their weapons were nothing compared to the Phyrexians' advanced technology. The Federation's leaders quickly declared that Earth's defense was of little concern. They assumed that the Phyrexians, with their superior power, would demand Earth's surrender without much effort. They were wrong to think that humans would simply give up without a fight. As Earth's leaders gathered, they were bombarded with advice and warnings from the Federation's representatives. Many of them were quick to suggest that humanity should surrender to avoid unnecessary loss of life. They spoke of the inevitability of the Phyrexians' power, trying to convince Earth's leaders that resistance was futile. They argued that Earth's military, despite its bravery, was no match for the alien invaders. But the leaders of Earth didn't share the same outlook. Despite knowing that their chances of survival were slim, they could not bring themselves to surrender. President Sarah Lopez, the newly elected leader of Earth, called for calm during a tense meeting in the United Nations headquarters. She looked at the world's leaders and addressed the room with determination. "We are not a race to kneel before invaders," she said, her voice steady. "We are Earth. We are human. And we will fight for our survival." Her words were powerful, but they were also met with uncertainty from many of the room's attendees. They had never faced anything like the Phyrexians before. However, something in President Lopez's words sparked a fire of hope in the hearts of the people. Even though Earth's military was small by galactic standards, humanity had something the Phyrexians didn't expect: an unshakable will to survive. As the world watched, something extraordinary began to happen. People from all corners of the globe started to rally together. Thousands of civilians, scientists, and engineers worked day and night, brainstorming solutions to defend Earth. A collective determination spread like wildfire, and people from all walks of life began to believe that they could make a difference. One of the brightest minds to join the effort was Dr. Julia Henson, a scientist who had spent years researching space technologies. Dr. Henson was known for her cutting-edge work on human space travel and weaponry. After hearing about the Phyrexian invasion, she immediately began studying their technology. It wasn't long before she discovered a weakness, a small but crucial flaw in their ship's defense systems. It was a technical detail that many of the galaxy's brightest minds had overlooked. Dr. Henson was able to reverse engineer the Phyrexians' energy shields and develop a prototype weapon that could disrupt their technology. It wasn't perfect, and the chances of it working against such a formidable enemy were slim, but it was a start. Dr. Henson presented her findings to President Lopez, who immediately recognized the importance of this discovery. Humanity now had a fighting chance. The news spread quickly, and across the world, people were energized. They began to organize. Earth's military forces, though not as advanced as those of other galactic civilizations, had a spirit that was unmatched. Soldiers and civilians alike worked together, forming a unified front against the Phyrexian invaders. Governments set aside their differences, and for the first time in human history, the world was united under a single cause: survival. As Earth prepared for what was to come, the Phyrexians grew impatient. They had underestimated humanity, and in their arrogance, they assumed that Earth would fall without a fight. But the people of Earth were ready to prove them wrong. Their strength was not in their technology alone, but in their unity, their resilience, and their refusal to give up. The stage was set. The galaxy's most powerful civilization had arrived, but they had no idea what kind of fight they were about to face. The day the Phyrexian fleet arrived at Earth's orbit, the sky was unlike any other. As humanity's greatest minds worked tirelessly in their laboratories and military bases, an ominous shadow began to stretch across the Earth's horizon. For days, people had been receiving news reports, each one more urgent than the last, but no one fully understood what was coming. It wasn't until the first sighting of the alien ships, massive, dark forms that blocked out the stars, that Earth truly understood the scope of the threat. The Phyrexians were here. The world held its breath. At first, the Phyrexians didn't strike. They simply hovered above Earth's atmosphere, their ships hanging in the sky like silent giants. A message was sent to Earth's leaders. The tone was cold, almost mechanical. It was a warning, followed by a demand. This world is under our control. You have one choice: surrender or be destroyed. It wasn't a declaration of war. It was a command. Earth, though not entirely defenseless, was vastly unprepared. The Phyrexian fleet could obliterate entire cities with a single pulse of their energy weapons. It was clear, if they wanted, they could wipe humanity off the map with no effort at all. The world's leaders, including President Lopez, watched in disbelief as the message flashed across every screen. The Federation, the Galactic Council, had advised surrender, predicting Earth's inevitable fall. They were convinced that any resistance would be pointless. To them, humanity was just another species in the vast sea of the universe, a tiny dot among countless stars, unimportant in the grand scale of things. But President Lopez did not see it that way. "Do not let fear take us," she said, addressing the citizens of Earth through a global broadcast. "We are humans. We have always risen when the world has called upon us. Now, we will rise again, together." Her words, though simple, carried a weight of meaning that sparked something in every human heart. Across the globe, from the bustling streets of New York to the quiet villages in Africa, people found strength in her message. The world had been afraid, unsure of how to fight a force they could not understand. But now, humanity's spirit of unity began to shine through. Dr. Julia Henson, the brilliant scientist who had uncovered the weakness in the Phyrexian ships, was the first to act. She quickly joined President Lopez in the emergency strategy meeting, along with military commanders from every corner of the world. While the leaders debated what to do, Dr. Henson presented her findings. The Phyrexian energy shields, though powerful, could be disabled with the right kind of technology that humanity could adapt to its own systems. Though the weapon was still experimental, there was no time to waste. Earth's engineers and soldiers worked side by side to modify the technology, using every scrap of human ingenuity and skill. The Phyrexians remained silent, watching from above, waiting for humanity's surrender. But no surrender came. At the same time, the human military, though inexperienced in facing alien threats of this scale, was far from unprepared. The soldiers of Earth had always trained for the worst, ready for any enemy that might one day threaten their planet. They may not have had the advanced weapons of the Phyrexians, but they had something far more important: a fierce determination to protect their homes. As the hours stretched into days, humanity's first line of defense was put in place. The world's military satellites, which had been designed for surveillance and communication, were repurposed into weapons platforms. They were crude, even by Earth standards, but they represented a glimmer of hope. They weren't enough to match the full power of the Phyrexian fleet, but they would serve as a message. Humanity was not going down without a fight. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the moment arrived. Earth's leaders made the decision to take action. They had to show the Phyrexians that humanity was not simply going to bend to their will. The first attack came from a small fleet of human warships, armed with makeshift energy weapons developed by Dr. Henson and her team. The ships launched from Earth's orbit, firing their weapons at the closest Phyrexian ship. The human ships shook with the force of their weapons, but they held strong as they sped toward the enemy. The Phyrexians, confident in their superior technology, didn't expect a fight. When the human ships fired, it wasn't enough to damage the Phyrexian shields. The blasts merely bounced off, but the message was clear. Humanity had come to fight. The Phyrexians responded with overwhelming force. Their ships fired beams of energy that tore through the human warships like paper. Yet, despite the losses, the human forces did not retreat. Instead, they came back for more, attacking with renewed vigor and resourcefulness. Dr. Henson's weapon was tested for the first time. Though the Phyrexian shields were still powerful, humanity's new technology worked. The energy pulse disrupted the Phyrexian shields long enough for the human ships to launch a second wave of attacks. Though the damage was minimal, it was enough to rattle the Phyrexians. For the first time, they realized that humanity was not as weak as they had believed. In the midst of the battle, President Lopes addressed the world again, her voice unwavering. "We may be outmatched, but we are not out of hope. We fight not just for our world, but for all those who have been oppressed. Let them know that humanity's strength is the greatest weapon we have." As Earth's forces fought valiantly, the world watched in awe. Humanity was not giving up. The battle for Earth had only just begun, but one thing was certain. The Phyrexians had underestimated the strength of humanity's spirit. As Earth's fight against the Phyrexians continued, something remarkable began to happen. Despite the overwhelming power of the alien invaders, humanity was not backing down. In fact, the more the Phyrexians pushed, the stronger humanity seemed to grow. People from all over the world, soldiers, scientists, engineers, and even civilians, came together with a single purpose: to defend their home. At first, the Phyrexians had thought of Earth as a minor, insignificant world, one that could be easily conquered. But as the weeks went by and the resistance continued to grow, they began to realize that humanity was not a race to be underestimated. What the Phyrexians had not accounted for was the strength that came from unity. Humans, despite their differences in culture, language, and background, had always shown an incredible ability to come together in times of crisis. And now, that unity was being put to the test in a way the galaxy had never seen before. In every corner of the Earth, people were doing what they could to help. In the large cities, military bases were buzzing with activity, as soldiers trained and prepared for the next wave of battle. But it wasn't just the military that was stepping up. Civilians, too, were playing a critical role. Engineers and scientists worked day and night to develop new technologies and adapt Earth's weapons to be more effective against the Phyrexian ships. Factories that once produced everyday goods were now working overtime, churning out materials for weapons and defense systems. One such place was a factory in Germany, where a team of engineers, led by a brilliant inventor named Lucas, worked tirelessly on building new energy weapons. They were simple by most galactic standards, but they were powerful enough to damage the Phyrexian shields. Lucas and his team spent sleepless nights welding, testing, and refining their designs. They knew that every moment counted, and that their work might be the difference between victory and defeat. In Africa, a group of farmers had turned their attention to a different kind of battle. They had no access to advanced technology, but they used their knowledge of the land to help support the human effort. They grew crops that could sustain the growing number of soldiers and worked with local communities to build underground shelters, providing a safe haven for those who needed it most. In Asia, Doctors and medical teams set up field hospitals, treating injured soldiers and civilians alike. Their work was essential, as the war had caused widespread devastation. But even in the face of constant danger, the doctors refused to give in to fear. They worked tirelessly, often using whatever limited supplies they could get their hands on, determined to save lives. The world was coming together in a way it never had before. There were no borders, no divisions. There was only one goal: to protect Earth from the Phyrexians. The unity that emerged from the crisis gave humanity a strength that no enemy could easily crush. At the same time, Earth's leaders, including President Lopes, were working on a global scale to coordinate the defense. With the help of the Federation's allies, humanity was able to begin building a coalition of their own. Though Earth was still far from being as technologically advanced as the Phyrexians, the shared knowledge and resources of other species provided crucial support. New weapons were introduced, based on designs that had never been seen on Earth, giving humanity a much-needed advantage in the fight. But it wasn't just technology and resources that were working in humanity's favor. There was something else: the spirit of the people. Soldiers went into battle with courage that inspired others. Ordinary civilians, too, became heroes in their own right, finding ways to contribute to the war effort even without being on the front lines. The Phyrexians, who had assumed they would encounter a world divided and scared, were beginning to realize that humanity's strength lay not just in technology, but in their heart and spirit. In one particular battle, a human squadron managed to strike a major blow against the Phyrexians' supply lines, using nothing more than tactics and determination. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but the squadron's captain, a woman named Sarah, led her team with an iron will. They used the terrain to their advantage, setting up traps and ambushes that caught the Phyrexian forces by surprise. It wasn't the most advanced strategy, but it worked. The Phyrexians had never expected such resourcefulness from humans, and the surprise attack caused significant damage to their forces. The Phyrexian commanders, who had once thought the battle was already won, began to question their assumptions. They saw that humanity was not as weak as they had believed. The resistance was growing, and every time they thought they had crushed it, it rose again, stronger and more determined. Back at Earth's command center, Dr. Julia Henson and President Lopes exchanged a quiet but hopeful glance. They knew the fight was far from over, but there was no doubt in their minds that humanity had found its strength. It wasn't in the weapons, or the technology, or the strategies alone. It was in the people, in the heart of every human who had come together to face this unimaginable threat. The Phyrexians may have been technologically superior, but humanity had something they would never understand: the strength of unity and the will to never give up. As weeks turned into months, the battle for Earth raged on. Humanity's resistance was no longer just about surviving. It was about fighting back. The Phyrexians, who had once been so confident in their ability to crush Earth, were beginning to experience something they hadn't anticipated: human ingenuity. Every time they tried to strike a decisive blow, humanity found a way to adapt and respond, often in unexpected ways. The initial shock of the Phyrexian invasion had brought Earth's nations together, but as time went on, it became clear that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its technology alone. It was the people, the everyday individuals who had come together to form a united front. Ordinary people, from all walks of life, had become part of the fight. They had learned to build, to fight, and to sacrifice for the survival of their planet. One of the most significant breakthroughs in the war came from a group of engineers in India who had been working on a prototype of a new kind of energy weapon. It was based on Dr. Henson's earlier designs, but it was far more advanced. The engineers had been able to adapt the technology to harness the planet's natural energy sources, making it far more powerful than anything humanity had used before. They tested it for the first time in a remote part of the desert. The weapon, when fired, sent a pulse of energy so strong that it lit up the sky for miles around. The energy beam struck a piece of the Phyrexian fleet, and for the first time in the war, the enemy ships seemed to flinch. The Vrexians had been so used to their superior shields that they hadn't anticipated an attack of this magnitude. The news spread like wildfire across Earth. Humanity had found something that could stand up to the Vrexians. The weapon wasn't perfect, and it couldn't destroy the entire fleet, but it was a significant step forward. The Vrexians, who had once underestimated Earth, now realized that humanity was no longer helpless. In the command centers of the Vrexian fleet, there was growing concern. The resistance on Earth was unlike anything they had faced before. The humans were resourceful, determined, and unpredictable. For every setback the Vrexians suffered, they began to question their own assumptions. Could they truly defeat a species that would not stop fighting, no matter the odds? President Lopes knew that the battle was far from over, but she also knew that humanity was finally beginning to turn the tide. She addressed the world once again, her words filled with hope and strength. "We have taken the first step toward victory," she said. "The Vrexians thought we were weak, but we have shown them that we will never give up. We are Earth, and we will fight with everything we have. The future is ours to shape." Her words filled every home on Earth. They gave the people something they hadn't had for months: hope. For the first time in the war, humanity could see a light at the end of the tunnel. They weren't just fighting to survive, they were fighting to win. But the Vrexians weren't going to give up easily. The battle had only just begun, and Earth's enemies were preparing for their next move. They were now aware of the humans' growing strength, and they weren't about to let that go unchallenged. As Earth's forces continued to make progress, the Vrexians launched a new offensive. Their strategy was simple but deadly: a full-scale attack on Earth's capital cities. They planned to strike at the heart of humanity's will to resist, believing that if they could destroy the core of human leadership, the rest of the world would crumble. The cities that had once been safe havens were now on high alert. Earth's defenses were stronger than ever, but they weren't foolproof. Humanity had to brace itself for the worst. The Vrexian fleet began to descend from the sky, their ships hovering ominously over the world's most populous areas. In the midst of this new crisis, a group of human pilots, led by Captain Sarah, prepared for one of the most dangerous missions of the war. They were tasked with intercepting the Vrexian fleet before it could reach Earth's capitals. It was a risky mission, and the odds of success were slim, but Sarah and her team were determined. They had trained for this moment for months, and they knew this could be their last chance to turn the tide in humanity's favor. As the battle raged above the Earth's atmosphere, Sarah's squadron engaged the Vrexians in a daring attack. The human pilots, outnumbered and outgunned, used their knowledge of Earth's terrain and tactics to outmaneuver the much larger Vrexian fleet. They struck fast, using their speed and agility to disable the enemy ships one by one. It wasn't enough to destroy the entire fleet, but it was enough to slow their advance. Back on Earth, President Lopes watched the battle unfold on her screen. She knew that the coming days would be the most crucial of the entire war. If humanity could hold its ground, if they could continue to resist and innovate, there was a chance, just a chance, that they could win. And then something extraordinary happened. A massive explosion rocked the Vrexian fleet. The energy weapon from the Indian engineers had struck again, this time at the heart of the Vrexian flagship. The pulse of energy was so powerful that it knocked out the fleet's central command systems, throwing their entire operation into chaos. The Vrexians, stunned by the unexpected attack, struggled to regain control. Their once imposing fleet was now disoriented and vulnerable. The turning point had come. Humanity had found its moment. President Lopes breathed a sigh of relief, but she knew that the war wasn't over. The Vrexians would regroup, and the fight would continue. But for the first time, the future didn't seem so uncertain. Humanity had proven its strength, its unity, and its will to survive. And now, they were ready for whatever came next. The war had dragged on for months, and Earth's forces were beginning to feel the strain. Though humanity had shown remarkable resilience, the constant pressure of defending against the Vrexian fleet was starting to take its toll. The Phyrexians, despite their setbacks, were not a species that could be defeated easily. They had vast resources, advanced technology, and a relentless determination to conquer the planet. Yet, Earth's people refused to give in. They had fought too hard, and they had come too far. In the midst of this struggle, there was a growing sense of hope. After the attack on the Phyrexian flagship, Earth's forces had gained a small but crucial advantage. The Phyrexians were no longer confident in their ability to win. They had underestimated humanity from the start. But now, they were learning a hard lesson. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. President Lopes, ever the symbol of Earth's resolve, stood before a global audience. She had faced countless challenges during the war, but this moment felt different. For the first time, the world seemed united in its determination. There was a sense of hope in the air that hadn't been there before. Today, she said, her voice calm but strong, we stand on the edge of something incredible. We have shown the Phyrexians that we will not surrender. We have proven that our strength lies not just in our technology, but in our spirit. Together, we will continue to fight for Earth, for our families, and for our future. Her words resonated deeply with people all over the planet. From the small villages to the bustling cities, humanity was more determined than ever. The war had brought the world together in a way that no one could have predicted. Differences in language, culture, and politics had been put aside. Now there was only one thing that mattered: Earth. Across the globe, people were doing everything they could to support the war effort. Soldiers continued to train. Civilians worked in factories to produce weapons and supplies, and scientists raced to develop new technologies to turn the tide of battle. Everywhere, the sense of unity was palpable. In the United States, the military had developed a new form of defense, a series of massive energy shields that could protect entire cities from the Phyrexian blasts. Though still in the experimental phase, these shields were already proving to be a game changer. They weren't perfect, but they provided a crucial layer of protection against the Phyrexian weapons. Meanwhile, in Europe, a group of engineers had successfully reverse-engineered a piece of Phyrexian technology. Using the knowledge they had gained, they were able to build a new kind of fighter jet, one that could match the speed and agility of the Phyrexian ships. It was a breakthrough that gave humanity an edge in the ongoing battles above Earth's atmosphere. But even with these technological advancements, humanity knew that the war could not be won through weapons alone. It was their unity, their shared resolve, that would ultimately carry them through. And the Phyrexians, despite their overwhelming might, had yet to fully grasp the strength of that unity. One of the most moving moments of the war occurred when a group of refugees, who had been living in the underground shelters for months, began to send messages of encouragement to the soldiers fighting on the front lines. These messages were simple, words of thanks, of pride, and of hope. They reminded the soldiers that they weren't just fighting for themselves, but for everyone. For the mothers, fathers, children, and grandparents who had been forced from their homes. For the people who had nothing left but their belief in a brighter future. Among those soldiers was Captain Sarah, who had become a symbol of humanity's resistance. She had led her squadron through countless battles, and her determination had inspired those around her. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but with each victory, however small, she could see the shift in the Phyrexian fleet's attitude. They were beginning to realize that Earth was not a world they could simply take. Humanity was fighting for its future, and it would not be so easily crushed. One day, as Sarah and her team prepared for another mission, she received a message from Dr. Henson. The scientist had been working tirelessly on a new weapon, one that could potentially change the course of the war. It was an energy-based device that could disrupt the Phyrexian fleet's communication systems, throwing their operations into disarray. If it worked, it could be the key to finally breaking the Phyrexians' hold on Earth. The plan was risky. It involved infiltrating the heart of the Phyrexian fleet and deploying the weapon directly into their command center. The chances of success were slim, but Sarah and her team knew that this might be their only opportunity to gain a decisive advantage. As they prepared to launch their mission, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. She had seen firsthand the strength of humanity's resolve, and she knew that no matter the outcome, the Vrexians would never be able to erase the spirit that had emerged from this war. Humanity's heart was stronger than any weapon. The mission was a success beyond anyone's expectations. The weapon worked, and the Vrexian fleet's communication systems were temporarily disabled. Chaos spread through their ranks, and Earth's forces seized the opportunity to strike with renewed force. The Vrexians were forced to retreat, and for the first time in the war, Earth's forces were in control. It wasn't the end of the war, but it was a turning point. The Vrexians had lost their grip on Earth, and humanity had taken a major step toward victory. But more than that, the mission proved something undeniable. Humanity had found its strength, and the Vrexians could no longer ignore the determination of a united world. President Lopez's voice rang out across Earth once more. "We have turned the tide," she said, her words filled with a confidence that spread to every corner of the planet. "The Vrexians may have thought they could defeat us, but they were wrong. Earth stands strong, and together, we will win this war." The tide of the war had begun to shift in humanity's favor, but the battle was far from over. The Vrexians, though momentarily thrown off balance by the destruction of their communication systems, were regrouping. They were not a species that would retreat easily. Earth's victory, while significant, had only made the invaders more determined. In the weeks following their defeat, Earth's forces continued to gain ground. The energy weapon that had struck the Vrexian flagship was being improved, and now it was powerful enough to disable entire fleets in a single strike. The new fighter jets, built with reverse-engineered Vrexian technology, were proving to be a valuable asset. Earth's forces were becoming more coordinated, more confident. The Vrexians, however, were adapting too. They began to adjust their tactics, counteracting many of humanity's breakthroughs. But President Lopes knew that the only way to end the war once and for all was to strike at the heart of the Vrexian forces. She had made this decision with the full understanding that it would not be an easy task. Earth's resistance was strong, but they had to deal with the full might of the Vrexian fleet, which was now regrouped and more formidable than ever. As the final battle loomed closer, Dr. Henson, who had been at the forefront of humanity's technological advancements, came forward with a new idea. It was a long shot, but it might just be the edge they needed. She had developed a device that could deliver a pulse strong enough to destroy the Vrexian fleet's energy shields, rendering their ships vulnerable to attack. The device would be deployed in the heart of the Vrexian command ship, deep within enemy lines. It was a dangerous plan, but it was the only way to ensure that humanity could have a chance at winning. Captain Sarah, the leader of the human fighter squadron, was selected to carry out this mission. Sarah had become a symbol of humanity's strength, and her leadership had inspired countless others. She was not only a skilled pilot, but also a leader who understood the importance of the mission. She gathered her squadron, knowing that this would be the most dangerous mission of their lives. It would be a one-way trip for many of them. The Vrexians would never allow such a powerful weapon to be deployed without putting up a fierce fight. Sarah addressed her team before they left for the final mission. "This is it. We've all made sacrifices to get to this point. Some of us may not return, but we know why we're doing this. We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for everyone back on Earth. For our families, our friends, and all the people who believed in us. We've already proven that we're capable of doing the impossible. Let's finish what we started." The squadron members nodded, a sense of determination settling over them. They climbed into their jets, preparing for the battle ahead. The journey to the Vrexian command ship was perilous. They had to travel through the heart of the Vrexian fleet, surrounded by ships far more advanced than anything Earth had ever seen. The fighters were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had one advantage: humanity's resourcefulness. They used the environment to their advantage, flying low to avoid detection and launching surprise attacks whenever possible. The Vrexians were caught off guard by the audacity of the human fighters. Their ships were powerful, but they weren't prepared for the tactics that humans employed. The squadron moved swiftly, disabling several enemy ships and clearing a path for the rest of their team to reach the command ship. As they approached their target, they encountered fierce resistance. The Vrexians were not about to let the humans get close without a fight. Explosions rocked the air as laser blasts whizzed by, narrowly missing their targets. The air was filled with the hum of energy weapons and the roar of engines as the two sides clashed in an epic battle. Captain Sarah's voice crackled over the comms. "Stay focused. We're almost there. Keep moving." With each passing minute, the stakes grew higher. They had to reach the Vrexian command ship before the enemy could activate their countermeasures. Sarah's squadron pushed forward, dodging blasts and using their speed to their advantage. They knew that their mission was more than just a tactical strike. It was the final push to end the war. Finally, they reached the heart of the Vrexian fleet. The command ship loomed before them, massive and imposing. Sarah and her team executed their final approach, firing their weapons to clear a path as they neared their target. The device that Dr. Henson had developed was their last hope. They had to get it on board and activate it, no matter the cost. With incredible precision, Sarah guided her jet toward the vulnerable part of the command ship's hull. It was a risky maneuver, but it was their only chance. Her squadron followed close behind, covering her as she deployed the device. Just as the device was activated, an explosion shook the battlefield. The energy pulse fired, and the entire Vrexian fleet went into disarray. Their shields flickered and failed, leaving their ships exposed to attack. The Vrexians were in chaos. They had never anticipated such a powerful strike, and they were forced to retreat as Earth's forces closed in. The human squadron had done it. They had crippled the Vrexian command ship, and the tide of the war had shifted once again. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time in months, there was a sense of relief. Humanity had made the final push, and it seemed that victory was within their grasp. President Lopes addressed the world once again. "We have struck a decisive blow to the Vrexians. The battle is not over, but we are one step closer to securing our future. Let this be the moment that proves to the galaxy that humanity is a force to be reckoned with." The Vrexian fleet was in chaos. The pulse from Dr. Henson's device had crippled their defenses, leaving their ships vulnerable. Earth's forces, bolstered by the courage of the fighter pilots and the innovations they had developed, wasted no time in pressing their advantage. The Vrexians, despite their superior numbers and technology, had underestimated the power of human determination. As the final battle raged on, the Vrexians began to retreat, their once mighty ships now nothing more than scattered fragments in space. The Earth forces moved in with precision, dismantling the remnants of the invading fleet. For the first time since the invasion had begun, Earth's forces could breathe a sigh of relief. Victory, though not yet complete, was within their grasp. President Lopes stood at the front of the command center, her face calm but her heart racing. The sight of the Vrexians pulling back was a symbol of humanity's resilience, but she knew there was still much to do. The battle for Earth was over, but the fight for the future of the planet was only beginning. The Vrexians had learned the hard way that humanity would never back down, but that lesson came at a cost. Lives had been lost, and much of the world's infrastructure had been destroyed. "We've won the battle," Lopes said, speaking to the world. "But now we must rebuild. We must ensure that what we fought for, the future of humanity, is preserved for generations to come." The words were simple, but they resonated with every person listening. The global community had come together to defend their home, and now they would unite again to restore what had been broken. People around the world began to work together to repair the damage, from rebuilding homes to restoring vital infrastructure. The sense of unity that had defined the war effort now became the foundation for rebuilding the planet. As Earth's forces pursued the remnants of the Vrexian fleet, Sarah and her squadron received their orders to return home. They had completed their mission, and though they had suffered losses, they had succeeded in securing Earth's future. Sarah couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride for her team. They had done something no one thought possible. They had turned the tide of the war. When Sarah's jet finally touched down on Earth's soil, she was met with cheers and applause. The people of Earth recognized the sacrifices made by her and countless others who had fought in the skies, on the ground, and behind the scenes. But for Sarah, the true victory wasn't in the applause. It was in the knowledge that Earth had proven itself, not just to the Phyrexians, but to the entire galaxy. Humanity had shown that no matter how dire the situation, they would always find a way to fight back. In the aftermath of the war, humanity's reputation in the galaxy was forever changed. The Phyrexians, who had once seen Earth as an easy target, now viewed humanity with respect. They had learned that humans were not just survivors, they were a force that could not be underestimated. The galaxy, once dismissive of Earth, now knew better. Humans were not to be ignored. President Lopes, though relieved by the victory, continued to push for peace. She knew that Earth's future didn't lie in constant warfare. The goal was not just to protect the planet, but to ensure that humanity could build relationships with other species, forging alliances that would prevent future conflicts. The war had been hard, but it had taught Earth an important lesson. True strength was not just in the ability to fight, but in the wisdom to seek peace. In the months that followed, Earth took its first steps toward rebuilding relationships with other civilizations in the galaxy. The Phyrexians, recognizing humanity's strength, were open to negotiations, and the possibility of peace loomed on the horizon. But it wasn't just the Phyrexians that had learned to respect humanity. Other alien species, once skeptical of Earth's potential, now saw the humans as allies rather than threats. Earth's reputation had changed, and so had the way the galaxy viewed its place in the universe. As Earth recovered, the global community worked together to strengthen their defenses, knowing that the galaxy was a vast and unpredictable place. But they also knew that they had something that other species didn't: unity. Humanity's strength wasn't just in their technology or their military. It was in their ability to come together, to put aside differences, and to fight for a common goal. Sarah stood at the edge of a newly rebuilt city, looking out over the horizon. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the land. It had been a long and difficult journey, but humanity had emerged stronger than ever. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, there was hope. Humanity had fought for its survival, and now they would fight for their future. As she gazed out at the peaceful landscape, Sarah couldn't help but smile. The war was over, but the journey was just beginning. The lessons learned, the sacrifices made, and the unity forged in the fires of conflict would guide humanity toward a brighter future. The galaxy would no longer look at Earth as a small, insignificant world. They would look at it as a symbol of hope, strength, and the power of determination. And in that moment, Sarah knew one thing for sure: humanity had truly earned its place among the stars.